Good evening and welcome to Spelman College's 8th virtual town hall with our president, Dr. Mary Schmidt Campbell. The topic this evening is an overview of our new phased plan to repopulate the campus this coming academic year, beginning with the fall. Our plan is entitled Spelman College, The Path Forward. I am Sharon Davies, Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs at Spelman College. And I am also the co-chair of a task force that was assembled by the President alongside my colleague, Spelman College Chief Financial Officer and Vice President for Business and Financial Affairs, Don Austin. Together, the task force developed the Spelman College plan that will be the topic of discussion this evening. Before we hear from our president, let me remind you that this town hall is 1 hour in length. It will last from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. And for your convenience, it is also recorded. The recording will be posted later in the week on spelman.edu. We invite you to ask questions during the session. You can do so by clicking on the Q&A function on your Zoom page. The president will try to answer questions in the course of her presentation, and there will also be a time at the end of her presentation for her to answer additional questions. Answers to questions that we do not get to this evening will be posted on our FAQ page on the spelman.edu website. On your screen is a list of the members of the senior leadership team. They are here with us on the panel this evening, but I won't take our time to read through their names. I do want to thank them all for being with us. In addition, we have members of the task force who are available to answer questions this evening as well. Their names are listed on your screen, and I want to take this opportunity to thank each and every member of the task force that was assembled by the president to develop the plan for Spelman College. It is now my pleasure to turn the session over to the 10th president of Spelman College, Dr. Mary Schmidt Campbell.
Thank you, Provost Davies. Good evening. It's good to be with everyone. Tonight, we have in attendance over 1,400 students, faculty, staff, alumni, trustees, and friends of the college who have joined us. Welcome to all of you. I hope that each and every one of you is well and your families are doing well. Next slide, thank you. As promised, Spelman College released its plan for the fall on July 1st. In constructing our plan, our #1 top priority and most important guiding principle was the health and safety of our community. As we planned, we considered ourselves building on the Spelman College culture of caring. And during our planning process, faculty and staff have shared concerns about their health and welfare. Students have shared concerns about their well-being, their financial, emotional, and educational well-being. We heard those concerns, and our plan has taken them into account, and tonight we'll share with you how we balanced the many responses and needs of the Spelman College community. As we developed safety and health protocols for faculty, staff, and students, we also gave a great deal of thought to maintaining academic excellence for our students, even as we maintain the spirit and sisterhood and strong sense of community of a Spelman education. As I begin tonight's town hall, I'm reminded of something that a friend recently sent to me. She counseled me to think about the Apostle Paul's ancient words of encouragement to the Galatians in Galatians 6, verse 9. Let us not grow weary in doing good, in doing what is right, for we will reap a harvest if we do not lose heart. Next slide, please. As Spelman seeks to do good, we do so along with our partners in the Atlanta University Consortium, Morehouse College, Clark Atlanta University, and with guidance from the Morehouse School of Medicine. We've been guided to by medical expertise from the CDC and the Georgia Public Health Department. Working together has enabled the AUC to establish a set of consistent health protocols and practices for the entire AUC that complement guidelines for our individual campuses. We know that in seeking to do good, we have developed a plan that is a living document. One thing we know for sure, as the course of the virus changes here in Georgia and throughout the country, we are absolutely certain that our plans will change as well. So let's turn to our topics for tonight. Our topics tonight are to review with you the health screening protocols that everybody who comes to campus has to participate in. Also, the preventive measures that will be upheld while anyone is here on campus. I'd then like to show you a terrific summary of our plan that our Student Government Association put together, and our special thanks to our new president of Student Government, Fana Haile Selassie, and her entire SGA team. They did a really terrific job of summarizing and focusing on the highlights of the plan. Then we'd like to go over with you our plans for online instruction, how we finance the plan, and then we'd like to end with Student Government Association's summary of responses and questions. They invited you to give them feedback. You did in a very robust way, and they have organized the responses, and we're going to be able to answer, we're going to try to answer as many of those questions that were raised and summarized by SGA. So let's go to the next slide. Our health screening protocols will be mandatory, and that mandatory screening will include online training for everyone who has to come to campus. Part of what we're asking you to do is to take a risk self-assessment. This is private. No one sees this assessment except you. But this risk assessment helps you think about what might be some conditions of yours that would make it riskier for you if you were to become infected by COVID-19. Based on that, you can make an assessment as a staff or a faculty member as to whether or not you are able to come to campus, and you can make that same assessment as a student. We are requiring a negative COVID test for everyone. The notifications of that testing has been sent out to faculty and staff, and the testing begins later this week and will extend throughout the month of July. Instructions for incoming students will be distributed later this month, and as we said, incoming students will have the option of studying online if they choose. Everyone will be required to fill out and return a request to return to campus form. And we will ask everyone in our community to participate in daily monitoring of symptoms. Next slide. While on campus, we're asking everybody on our campus, faculty, staff, and students alike, to engage in some mandatory practices, including wearing a mask, exercising physical distancing on the campus, in classrooms, and in social areas. We're reminding people to exercise hand hygiene, and the college will be conducting periodic testing throughout the entire semester. If in fact someone tests positive, a student tests positive, they will be isolated and quarantined. If a faculty or staff tests positive, they will be asked to seek their medical attention and also not to come to campus. The college is maintaining single occupancy rooms, limiting class size, and much of NSO will be virtual, and some of the ceremonies may be held outdoors. So now what I'd like to do is show you this really wonderful and fun summary that our student government put together, because it so effectively focuses on some of the highlights of the plan. Next slide. It begins with sharing with our community how the task force was formed and how it conducted its work. And then it proceeds with a summary of what is a 22-page document. It pulls out the really critical pieces of information that are necessary to know. Next slide. It starts with our safety protocols. So as I mentioned, everybody will be expected to have a negative COVID test. Those tests have to be FDA approved and the PCR-based tests in order for us to accept them. There is the mandatory requirement of wearing a mask or a face covering over the nose and mouth while in contact with others, and checking symptoms daily. In person in classes, mandatory masks are required, physical distancing will be required in person, and there will be periodic COVID-19 testing. Next slide. For residential life, we have determined that the optimum number that we can manage is actually lower than 640. We've determined that it's actually 629. So we will only fill up the residence halls to 629. They will include our first-year students and our ROTC students. Our classes will start, NSO will start on August 10th, and by August 10th, what that means is check-in starts on August 10th. So when the cars are arriving and all of the baggage and luggage is being deposited, that will take place between the 10th and the 13th, and our actual virtual NSO classes will start on the 13th. Actual classes for the fall will begin August 19th, and all other courses other than first year and the ROTC will be online. In our dining halls, we will only have one dining hall that's open, and it will be grab and go. So you'll have packaged food that you can pick up and take out with you. There'll be no buffet, no serving. And we are providing for those who are online a 10% discount in tuition and a 40% discount on mandatory fees. By the way, there is one change on this slide that I'd like to announce. We originally announced that leases had to be signed by June 1st in order for students to be eligible for housing stipends. We've changed that. And now the deadline is July 1st. So leases have to have been signed by July 1st in order for students to be eligible for the housing stipend. We expect to send out the eligibility forms for the housing stipend in about a week. Next slide. The calendar is different for this year as well. We are doing away with Labor Day, fall break, and spring break. They've been eliminated because what we find is that when students go away for these breaks and then come back, that is when we have a high likelihood that they have contacted an infection. So we are consolidating our calendar so that by Thanksgiving, we will close out the semester with final exams being taken online. Campus will not reopen until February of 2021. And during the spring semester, we are eliminating spring break. Right now, I know there are lots and lots of questions because I've seen them come in, lots of questions about what will happen with the seniors and when will the seniors know about how soon and where they will be in residence. We don't have that information yet, and we're still working on the details of the spring semester. So that's the summary, and at the end of the summary, it said, tell us any questions or concerns you have, and the questions poured in, and we'll come back to those in a minute. Next slide. Most of our students here at Spelman will be receiving their instruction online. And I just want to point out that what you received in the spring was not online instruction. It was remote learning. It was taking what we already had for in-person instruction and putting it on a platform that we could deliver remotely. The fall semester will be different. We have spent the summer, our faculty has spent the summer in immersive training to develop courses that are exclusively for online, to develop syllabi that are online, and the college has developed its support structure for tutoring, counseling, and advising so that it is expressly designed for online. So what you will receive in the fall will be a revision of what took place in the spring. Those courses will be offered in Moodle. They will be synchronous. For those who are in different time zones, we will record those courses so that you can have access to them. And we have revised and upgraded our technology support as well. And you'll be hearing more about the details of online instruction in the weeks to come. Let's talk about now the financing of the plan. Next slide. Spelman College's fiscal year extends from July 1st to June 30th. So at the end of the last fiscal year, which ended June 30th, 2020, the college was able to balance its budget. But in the course of balancing its budget, it had to face a reduction in revenue of $5 million that came about as a result of the fact that students had to move out of their residence halls. And we, of course, returned the room and board fees. We were able to balance the budget by making some cuts in our operation, some reductions in our spending, and we were able to come out of the last fiscal year. We ended June 30th by balancing the expenses of the college with the revenue of the college. And what makes up those expenses? We pay out faculty salaries and staff. We have our utilities. We have our instructional technology that has to be managed, our dining services and residential life. Scholarships are funded out of our income, as well as our debt service. And how do we pay for those expenses? Spelman College relies primarily on tuition and fees. Tuition covers about 48% of our expenses. The rest of our expenses are covered by what we collect in terms of room and board, bookstore, parking. A smaller amount comes from our endowment yield, and the balance is made up of gifts and grants. Next slide. As we came to the end of the fiscal year in 2020, we looked at fiscal year 2021 and determined that because of COVID-19, we would only be able to have a small percentage, 25 to 30% of our student body population on campus. That meant that Spelman would have to have a reduction in its revenue from room and board. We also decided that given the stresses and strains of COVID, for those students who were still studying online, we would provide a discount to the tuition of 10%. That was also another reduction to our revenue. We did get some relief from the CARES Act, about $4.4 million. But in all, we were facing a $14 million loss in income. Next slide, please. In order to balance that budget, the employees, that is the faculty and staff at Spelman College, will receive furloughs. And these furloughs range anywhere from 5 days during the year, that's 5 days where they receive no salary, up to 15 days for senior team members. These reductions allow us to save money in faculty, staff, and administrative salaries. We froze many hiring. We just stopped hiring. We were able to defer our payroll tax. We're cutting the cost of our utilities. We're almost eliminating travel completely. and greatly reducing the cost of events, because we're not going to be holding many of our major events, certainly not during the fall, possibly during the spring. And we've had to have an increase in maintenance and cleaning, and also an increase in the costs that are established with carrying out the health protocols for COVID. We are now able to balance our 2021 budget between what we are charging in tuition fees and room and board, and in the cuts that the college has sustained. Next slide. So we still have a number of questions that are under consideration. And many of these questions came in through our SGA response. Many of you asked, what if there's an outbreak on campus? What would trigger an evacuation similar to what we had this spring? What would be the financial consequences of an evacuation? And as I mentioned, what are the plans for seniors once we get through the fall semester? Those questions are still under consideration. And as soon as we have the answers to those, we will give you the answers of those as we approach the beginning of the fall semester. Next slide, please. Through SGA and through the emails and questions you've sent directly to the Office of the President, we have received great feedback. We especially love that our students and parents have been so engaged. And we ask you to please continue to send questions and concerns so that we can address them. I'm going to now turn to some of the questions that have come up, and I'm going to invite members of the senior team or members of the task force to answer these questions as they have come up. A question came up regarding the TIN payment plan. When will it be available and what are the dates? I'm going to ask Dawn Alston, our CFO, to address that question.
Sure, thank you, Dr. Campbell. Yes, the 10-month plan is available and it is available now. We are accepting signups for that through July 30th, 2020. And in order to access that, you can go to spelman.edu, and in the search window, you can type in Student Account Center. That will take you to information regarding the plan and details around the dates for payments that are due.
Thank you. We have a lot of questions that have come in about COVID testing. They're asking about vendors, and the parents are asking about move-in. For our faculty and staff, the testing will take place at Morehouse School of Medicine, which is right across the street from Spelman College. For our incoming students, we are still going through the planning process for those students, but we would like to have the test be taken within 14 days of their return to campus before they come in, so that we get the test results back before they come to campus. If for any reason a student is not able to take a test before coming to campus, she would have to take a test either here on campus at Spelman or at Morehouse School of Medicine, and we would have to wait for the test results to come back before she would be allowed on campus. But the idea is for us to provide test kits that students can use themselves, take the swabs, submit the swabs, and get the results back before they come to campus. As for the periodic testing, we have not established the algorithm yet for the periodic testing. The mandatory baseline testing will assure us that everybody in our community has been tested. Once that's happened, we will set up an algorithm that will give us a mechanism of determining who will get tested when periodically. Another question that has come about is, how do students apply for the housing stipend? Dawn, can you answer that question for us?
Sure. All of the students will receive an email on July the 13th, 2020. It will have a link in it to a form that should be completed by July 20th, 2020. Based on the answers from the form, students will be it'll be determined whether the student is eligible to receive the housing stipend.
Thank you. We have a question about new student orientation. Does my daughter have to be on campus for NSO, or is it virtual? Dr. Holloman, can you talk to us about new student orientation?
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Campbell. First, I did want to just reiterate the dates. So actually on August 10th will be a virtual parent orientation, and then move-in will occur the 13th, 14th, and 15th. And new student orientation will actually begin. There will be a small virtual event on the 15th, 16th, and 17th. New student orientation, to answer your question directly, primarily it will be virtually, but we will try to find opportunities within the residence hall to have smaller social distance activities to ensure that our students are engaging with one another. We also have taken a really good look at the schedule, which included Linda Patton from Alumni Affairs, to make sure that we maintain the history and traditions that we are so very fond of at our college.
Thank you. And while we have you, can you answer questions about campus visitation from students, parents, Spelman students, their parents, from other students from Morehouse and Clark Atlanta?
Absolutely. Across the AUC, so that would include Spelman, Morehouse, as well as Clark Atlanta. Unfortunately, due to the nature of the virus and how highly contagious it is, there will be no visitation in the residence halls for either of the campuses. We also will not have students to have an opportunity to do visitation in between the halls. And so if you're in, say, for example, LLC 1, you won't be able to visit friends that are in BDT suites. But we are planning activities on campus to be able to engage our students. We're going to definitely use our outdoor spaces more in efforts to try to really figure out how we can have socially distanced and safe mask events that our students can participate in. But there will be no visitation over the fall semester.
Thank you. We have a question about what happens if a student gets ill and cannot return to campus. Will tuition and fees be prorated? I'm going to ask Dawn Alston if she would, our CFO, if she would answer that question.
Sure. If a student becomes too ill to continue their studies, then this falls under our existing withdrawal policy. A student who withdraws or takes a leave of absence from the college during the first 60% of the semester and does not receive any Title IV aid will receive an adjustment of her charges and institutional funds. This adjustment will be based on a percentage that is calculated by dividing the total number of days remaining in the semester by the total number of days in the semester. This will also be posted on spelman.edu in the next couple of weeks. Now, if a student becomes ill during the first 60% of the semester and leaves the campus but continues to do their studies remotely, the tuition and fees will be adjusted to reflect the remote learning pricing.
Thank you. This next question is for Provost Davies, who also may want to have one of our task force members field this question. There are many questions that are coming in about students who will need labs or in-person instruction for dance and music, How are we thinking about those, Provost Davies?
Yes, thank you, President Campbell. We are in very close communication with the chairs of the various academic departments who are hard at work over the course of this summer, planning various ways of allowing our students who are going to be taking classes online to still have the benefit of the experiences that they would normally be engaged in those classes. And so, for example, we have in our science departments faculty who are thinking about lab work that might be possible in a home environment under the watchful supervision of the professors of their courses. And also opportunities for them to watch, observe, take notes, and analyze their professors who may be engaged in experiments that they would be watching. So the faculty is being creative in various ways of how to reproduce in a home environment some of the work that the students would be doing. Other faculty are front-loading in the fall semester more theory courses and less hands-on courses. And there will be additional details from the faculty in the different departments for our students about more hands-on instruction for an online learner community.
Thank you. We have questions about students going off campus. And I think it's a very good set of questions. As all of you know, we're in Georgia where the numbers are actually increasing, unfortunately. We're in an urban environment and we can maintain very strict regimens here on campus and throughout the AUC. Once students leave campus, however, they are in a completely unregulated environment. And so I'm going to ask Dr. Holloman to speak to how we are thinking about handling students who wish to leave campus and go into the city of Atlanta.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Campbell. And I think that you have spoken very well about the increases in Fulton County and Atlanta. What our plan is to do is to really provide really strong educational moments during new student orientation, where we are just reinforcing for students the need to be safe, to socially distance, to wear masks should they go off campus. Of course, we're not a police state, and we can't force students to stay on campus. But we are strongly encouraging them to follow the same safety protocols that is being advised by the college, by the CDC. We will, however, be doing temperature checks for students as they go off campus and they come back on campus. We also have what we're calling the Verily app, which will be our safety protocol, where students will have to self-report any symptoms that they have. And all of this data is going to be watched very closely and managed by our health clinic. And should a student report that they are having multiple symptoms, or if they have a fever greater than 100 degrees, there is a that student will probably have to go into one of our quarantine spaces until further time that we can see that their our symptoms are not have not led to the virus.
Thank you. I thank you very much, Dr. Holloman, for that explanation. As we all know, one of the real risks of COVID, and some of the questions have pointed this out, is that someone can be test positive and be asymptomatic and be a carrier of the virus. This is one of the reasons why we have determined that we would have to do periodic testing, because the periodic testing would enable us to, from time to time, be able to just double check We take all these preventive measures. That's the best way to make sure that we're not infected with the virus. And then the periodic testing allows us to make sure that if somebody happens to be asymptomatic and a carrier, we would be able to identify them quickly and do the contact tracing that would allow us to see where they might have infected others. There is a question also that came up prior to the town hall, and it's about health insurance coverage. Can you tell us a little bit about health insurance coverage, Dr. Holloman?
Absolutely. All students at Spelman College are required to have health insurance. For those that have their own private insurance, they're able to do a waiver. You can find out about that through the your student portal of when the deadline is for the waiver. The waiver is done one time per semester. If you have a state plan insurance, you have to get the Spelman insurance unless you're taking classes remotely or online. And we are currently working with our health insurance vendor to assess the number of students who may have state-funded plans so that we can automatically apply the waiver. But all students are required to have insurance. If you don't have private insurance, then you would have to get a Spelman insurance plan.
Thank you. So there have been a number of questions about maintaining the Spelman sisterhood. That's a real challenge because throughout the year, one of the great things that we do is that we have these traditions that remind us of who we are, what we stand for, and what we mean in the world, and what it means to be here at Spelman College. A lot of those traditions take place at new student orientation, but a lot of them take place throughout the year. There's homecoming. There's our Christmas Carol concert. In the spring, as we know, there's Founders Day and all of the traditions that are associated with commencement, which this year, of course, we couldn't experience in person. And those are all part of what it means to be part of this community we call Spelman. So figuring out how we maintain those ceremonies and traditions, even as we can't physically come together, has been a real challenge. But I've been very impressed by some of the things that the faculty have come up with that I think are very exciting in terms of creating a sense of community. I'm going to call on Dr. Watkins, who is not only the chair of the Department of Psychology and an associate professor of psychology here at Spelman, but she's also a proud alumna and also has many members of her family who have been proud Spelman alumni. And I'm going to ask her to share some of the exciting conversations and discussions that we're thinking about having that will help us create that spirit of community and connection to each other. Dr. Watkins?
Thank you so much, Dr. Campbell. I'm excited to share our plans for a community discussion that will address the national conversation on race. This is something that is dear to my heart and to the heart and bloodline even of my family, and certainly of my Spelman sisters. It is a conversation that we must all be involved in. Many of us are already participating in various conversations and protests. Spelman has a legacy of advocacy and of social justice, and we will not be absent in this conversation and involving ourselves in discussions around Black Lives Matter and social justice. So we are planning a virtual series. There will be about 5 of them. The first will be held on Tuesday, July 21st at 5 o'clock. It will be a discussion among faculty, students, and community and national experts around topics that are relevant to equity and equality. The first session will focus on racism, white supremacy, and anti-racism. We also will have among our series a focus on voter suppression, health inequities, criminal justice, and corrections. And I am so excited. This is just one of the many kinds of conversations that we will have together as a Spelman community. There is also a series of what will be called Conversations on the Porch, which will be sponsored by our first year Big Questions Colloquia that will also help us to talk further about what is going on in our community and at angles that we must consider. Our faculty are hosting town halls and sharing things relevant to COVID and health inequities. And so this is just a sample of the many conversations and the ways in which we are going to be pulling our full community together. So as a Spelman alum, as a Spelman mother, as a Spelman daughter, as a Spelman faculty, I can assure you that we have lots in store to keep us fully engaged in necessary and intellectually stimulating ways.
Thank you. You know, I neglected to say, Dr. Watkins, you're also president of our faculty council. And you
Absolutely.
You mentioned bloodlines. Do you want to talk a little bit more about the bloodlines?
Yes, so I am a fourth generation Spelman alum. My great-grandmother, my grandmother, my mother, I, and my daughter, who is now a fifth generation Spelman alum, are all Spelmanites, were Spelmanites. Many of them, my great-grandmother and my grandmother, are deceased. But I have several cousins that are Spelman alum. I don't mind sharing with you that I am the niece of Martin Luther King Jr. And so our family is steeped in Spelman's history. We have been involved for many, many years. Spelman is so much a part of us, and for many, many reasons. Spelman is known for certainly community engagement, for intellectual stimulation, for graduating leaders, women leaders in a number of fields. Spelman is serious about developing young African-American women. I am so proud of my faculty colleagues who are doing wonderful and innovative work. I am so proud of the staff who are caring and deliberate in their involvement with students and making sure that students do well. We are truly a family. Spelman is not only a sisterhood, but those of us who are on campus working, we are a family along with our students. And I'm excited that Spelman has found a way to keep us going in this difficult time. I am so excited that we are still moving and we are all committed to keeping Spelman alive and to offering all of the many courses, all of the many majors, all of the many extracurricular activities, all of the many intellectual conversations, all of the fun. Spelman is a fun place. and we will not be absent in having all of the fun that we are used to. We will make sure that we are going forward. The show must go on. And I will close with just a line from our Spelman hymn. I'm paraphrasing. Standards and honor raised. That's what I'm trying to get to. That's an exact quote. Standards and honor raised. That's what we are doing. Thank you so much, Dr. Campbell.
Thank you, Dr. Watkins. I wanted our audience to hear the sense of passion and purpose that you hold in your heart, because it is actually, it extends throughout the Spelman College faculty. And it showed up with everybody who came forward to participate in the planning, everybody who's now participating in developing the online courses, everybody who's now participating in all these programs. And it's that spirit with which that we are entering our plans for the fall semester. Let me get back to some of the very specific questions that have come up. There are lots and lots of questions about communal bathrooms. Have they been transitioned to single use? Dawn Alston, can you respond to that?
Sure. We have not transitioned the communal bathrooms to single use. However, we are taking measures to help to ensure that students are able to at least social distance while using the sinks. And we are putting into place extra measures around disinfectant, increasing our cleaning schedules, increasing the use of putting hand sanitizers and soaps that will be available throughout the campus. And the students who are in the suites will be able to have less density in their bathrooms.
Thank you. There are lots of questions also about testing for parents. Of course, we know that students don't come here on their own. They have to be either driven or accompanied by their parents. And what are our plans for testing for our parents? Either Dr. Holloman or Dawn, have we made a determination about that yet?
So we have, based on HIPAA concerns that we have been made aware of, we will not be testing the parents who come to campus during new student orientation, but we will be doing our health protocol screenings, which would involve them asking a series of health questions in terms of the virus and the symptoms that are a part of the virus, as well as doing temperature checks. One of the things that we're also trying to control in terms of the density is that we will be scheduling time slots for parents to come with their children and students to drop off their things for new student orientation. We are limiting the amount of individuals who come to campus. So a student will only be able to have 2 individuals from their family to come onto the campus.
Dr. Holloman, can you say that again?
Yes. We will be limiting the number of family members that will be able to help the student to come on campus. Historically, we have allowed, a full slate of family members, and we are very hopeful to get to that space again. It is a very moving time, but based on the COVID, we will only be limiting, the student will only have 2 people that will be able to help them on campus. We bought these really huge bins that should make the move-in process easier, and students and their 2 family members will be able to put the things in the bin, go to the room, and then because of the time limitations that we have, parents, and I know this is extremely upsetting, it would be upsetting for me as a parent, will not be able to help their students to set up their rooms. And so what I'm encouraging is that people really talk about that before they come to campus, and how that would look. In housing, we are making that a part of one of our virtual things, to have students to take pictures of their room so we can send it to the parents and we can post it online. The other thing is that we're encouraging families as much as possible to get everything that they will need before they come to campus, because we will not be able to have the luxury of people doing Walmart runs or going off campus to get some things. Um, it seems very stringent, but we really have to make sure as much as possible that we start the year really concerned with the safety and welfare of the students. And these things will be outlined in the information that you will get through the housing portal and communication, as well as the portal on new student orientation.
So we know that only a few of our residence halls are going to be in operation. So there are actually two questions that have come up. One has to do with, when will room assignments be made? And when will students know which residence hall they've been assigned to?
So that communication will, thank you, Dr. Campbell, that communication will go out the middle of July. Students will be assigned into their spaces. I did see a question on the question and answer about, will the honor students be in LLC 1, where I think they have historically been, because we are going to need to use every vital space on campus to house the students. We won't be honoring those kind of same type of affinity groups. And so we just want to make sure that we get everybody on campus. And so we will be using the BDT Suites, LLC 1 and 2, and McAlpin for those spaces.
Thank you. Provost Davies, as you know, we have a very robust study abroad program, and the question is about the spring semester for study abroad. What are the plans for spring semester at this point in terms of our study abroad program?
We haven't made a decision about spring semester. We're trying to approach this pandemic with hope. But we do know that it was necessary to cancel our fall semester study abroad coursework for our students, because it is not advisable to travel outside of the country right now. And so we hope that it will change. We'll make that determination sometime during the fall semester, and we'll be in close communication with the students who are hoping to travel in the spring.
Thank you. There's a question that came up about professors living on campus. We actually don't at Spelman have very many professors at all. There are one or two, and up to now, it's been used as a means for them to settle until they are able to move permanently into a space outside of campus. So yes, our faculty members overwhelmingly are coming in from off campus to the campus to provide in-person instruction. Dr. Holloman, there's a question about, if a student gets ill and requires hospitalization, what's the process that's going to happen here on campus?
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Campbell. We are in the process of, we've already established on our campus where we will have our quarantine spaces, as well as our isolation spaces. Our quarantine spaces, which are spaces that are used for students who may be demonstrating symptoms, that will be in Laura Spelman Hall. We have 24 beds there. And then for isolation, and that is for individuals who have the virus or have the virus or have been indicated to have the virus, tested to have the virus, will be in McAlpin, and there are 8 spaces there. We are in the process of working very closely with our local hospitals to try to build a MOU where we will have a hospital where we know for certain that our students will go to. And so we're trying to do that with the Wellstar Hospital, which has 2 locations, one in the old 4th Ward off Boulevard, the other is off Cleveland Avenue. That has not manifested itself yet, but we are diligently doing that. Atlanta is very interesting. We have several very notable hospitals throughout the city, which is very different from some of our my colleagues who are at smaller colleges and smaller towns. We have about 5 hospitals that are within a 3 to 5 mile radius of the institution. And so our healthcare providers and our director of the health center is Dana Lloyd. We are working very closely to ensure that we are following students and tracking their health protocols for the times that we may have to go to a hospitalization. We actually met this morning, me and a group of people, to begin to talk about what that process will look like in a very seamless way.
Thank you, Dr. Holloman. So there's a question that has come in and asked if all of the dorms that have been mentioned have air conditioning. Yes, they do. There's also a question about from students who have asked if we can have a town hall designed for questions and concerns from students who will be online during the fall. I think that's a terrific question, and I think that's something that we will organize. We have a number of people in the next few weeks who are going to be going on vacation, but we will find a time when we can have a town hall exclusively devoted to questions about for those students who are going to be online. A number of questions have come up, and I think they're very fair questions that have to do with the fact that there are many reasons why our students would have to go off campus to get supplies. Students who are going to be flying here from other cities and other states and who don't want to load themselves down with supplies. How can students stock up if they run out of supplies and need to have deliveries? So I think we're going to have to come back to you to give some more thought to how we might be helpful to get those items off campus that students might need as they are stocking up and organizing their rooms. There also is a question about food delivery. Dr. Holloman, do you want to talk to us about food delivery?
Yes, very briefly, we will be allowing, we're working with the police on that now to allow food delivery. Might look a little bit different than it did in the fall, but we are planning that as an option.
Thank you. So there are lots of questions about food and the dining hall. You've answered the one about getting food delivery. There are also questions about where refrigerators will be stored and how students will have access to them, microwave access, going to local stores for food. What are some of our plans in terms of food for students beyond the get and go from the dining hall and beyond food deliveries? Are there other ways that students will be able to access food?
Yes,
Dr. Holloman, thanks.
yes. Thank you, Dr. Hamel. We always have had a food shuttle that is run by public safety, and so we will still have that in place. The food shuttle will actually, we're increasing the hours that will go to the Walmart on Martin Luther King. We will be suspending the shuttle service to the West End Mall so that we can increase the food service to the grocery store. I'm also encouraging parents to think about shipping things to their students throughout the year. so that they, may have the things that you aren't able to get them during new student orientation.
Thank you. Well, we have come to the end of the hour. There were 503 questions that came up in our Q&A box, and I know that we've answered many of them, but we've by no means answered all of them. So please look for the answers to your questions in our FAQs. We will go through these questions and we'll make every effort to answer them as soon as possible. As we draw this town hall to a close, I want to once again thank you for asking these questions, raising these concerns. This is what helps us to continue to refine our plans and to make this experience as productive as we possibly can, and safe and healthy as we possibly can for you and our students. We will be sending messages throughout the summer, and we welcome continuing to get your questions and comments. You can feel free to email me or to reach out to SGA, connect with faculty, or connect with senior team. We're here to listen to you and consider carefully any concern that you have. I wish all of you a restful summer. Be safe, be well, and keep the faith.